inherent in the way the human brain works for some reason. And there must be some sort of evolutionary advantage to this. I have no idea what it is, because it seems like anytime you disconnect yourself from reality, you're going to be less effective as a human being. But somewhere back in the hairy primates swinging in trees period, I guess there was some use to this, but now it's just an impediment to being effective. But it is what it is, and you're going to have to deal with it. I think one thing that's very important is to just not make it worse. Make sure you have your data together. Try to do reporting based on data rather than your opinions, because I think to some extent you'll depersonalize. Now, excuse me. Another thing that I think you have to consider here is timing, right? I mean, sometimes people are going to get upset at you, and the transference is going to be worse because you just picked the wrong time to tell them something, and so you need to be somewhat sensitive. I mean, you're going to be the bearer of bad news. Okay, you're going to be the bearer of bad news from time to time. It's going to happen, but when there are good times and bad times to tell someone. And again, the ambushing somebody with bad news that I talked about earlier is a classic example of the wrong way to go about this. And it's also personality too. Transference is not equal across all people. Some people, they tend to do transference a lot more severely than others. They get really upset. They tend to blame other people for their screw-ups. They not very good at taking responsibility for things that they are at cause at. I can give you an example of this. I had worked with a project manager at one point who came into a test lab and asked me how things were going, and I said, well, we've got a new server in from the server vendor, and it looks like it's not working very well. It seems to have the same problems that we have with some of the other ones, but we're still working on it. We'll this is just a progress report. We'll let you know more information later. Well, he just completely overreacted. He dragged me up to his office. He called the vendor, and then he yelled at them, screamed at them, telling them how stupid they were. You guys can't do anything. And he's talking to the president of the company here. I leave the room after the call is over thinking, well, that was really unpleasant. And then things get a lot worse because I go downstairs, I go to the test lab, and it turned out that a lot of what we were seeing was just transient misconfiguration issues, that the thing had come to us not with bad hardware, but just badly set up. And once we fixed those problems, it worked. So I went back up and told the guy this, good news, it looks like we don't have as many problems as we thought. And he was furious. He was furious at me. He said, you made me make a fool of myself. You shouldn't have told me those things. And I'm thinking, well, I told you that we were still working on this. But I didn't say that because at that point, there was no way of recapturing the situation from this fellow. So, understand the personalities of the people you're dealing with too, because that's also an issue of transference. Okay, so another question here, Rasha Taher. If you don't have enough resources to do the reporting, what is the most vital report to deliver? Rasha asks. You're asking me to pick one. Boy. Well, I guess the one that really kind of ties together everything to some extent is the risk coverage one, because that has bugs and it has tests and it has risks all in one place. It doesn't show trend information, which is kind of a problem. You might have to think of some sort of way of showing a trend since like the last week or something like that. I don't know, but all the other ones that you would look at, cumulative bugs reported or test hours or test case progress, all of those are so unidimensional that it's very easy that one, just using one, and you could be gamed. Excuse me. Now, let me explain this what I mean by gamed. We have a client, a good client, very smart, smart people. Always happy to work with them, and they do a lot of smart stuff, which is true of all of our clients. But they made a mistake that I pointed out to them once when I did an assessment for them. I came down and I was looking at the way that they did things, and they had this metric called the defect fix percentage. And what they did is they looked at, before they would exit one phase of testing and move into another, like go from what they called system test, which was done by the project manager at the end of a given project to develop something, into what they called QA test, which was basically system integration testing of all of the different applications together. Before they could go from the system test to the QA test, they had to hit a certain percentage of bugs. That was the sole entry criteria. A certain percentage of bugs had to be fixed. That's DFP. Well, so when I first heard that, I said, that this is a problem. But I was in a room talking to one of the project managers, and I asked him a question. I said, what do you think of the number of duplicate bug reports filed? Are there too many? And he said, oh no, I love duplicate bug reports. I wish people would file more of them. And I said, that's really strange. I've never heard a development manager or project manager say that before in my life. Could you please help me understand why you love duplicate bug reports? He said, well, you know that defect fix percentage, and now I'm starting to understand, let's see where he's going with this. This is exactly what I was worried about. He said, what we do is, if we're getting close to the planned date where we're going to need to deliver into the QA test, which is, again, system integration, and our defect fix percentage is too low, we go looking for bugs that are duplicates. And then by just fixing one actual defect, we'll have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 reports closed. And then guess what? Our defect fix percentage goes up, and we go flying over the transom. So this is this is a risk. Anytime you use a single metric to manage, then somebody's going to figure out how to game that metric like this guy did. And notice he wasn't ashamed of it. I mean, I'm there in the room. He's telling me this story. I'm a consultant. I'm doing an assessment. He knows this is going to end up in my report. But he's just thinking, this is fine. This is how things are done. So, gaming of metrics will happen if you have unbalanced metrics. Let's see, another question from Russia. How much does the Pareto chart 80-20 is connected to reality? Would you rely on that for all kinds of projects? Well, okay, so if I understand your question, Russia, you're saying, is it really 80-20? Well, it's not really 80-20 in the sense it's not like always 80%, 20%, as we saw in the examples we looked at. It wasn't 80-20 once. But what the 80-20 rule really means is that most of the outcomes that you're worried about or that you're interested in are going to be associated with a very small number of causes relative to the total number of causes that are out there. In other words, is the disproportionality of outcomes associated with a small number of causes of what you're looking for. And is this true for all kinds of projects? Absolutely, absolutely. In terms of defect clustering, I mean, defect clustering happens. It happens everywhere. I mean, anytime anybody is looking at it, if you find a situation, Russia, where the bugs are randomly and uniformly distributed across the code in the system, and next time I'm in whatever city you live in, I will buy you dinner. You name the spot, because I tell you, it is not going to happen. It will not happen. So bug clustering happens, and Pareto charts are good at showing bug clustering. And that's just one example. There's it's a very common thing, and these Pareto charts are a very useful way of finding this. Let's see, a question here. When you say testing has no value, what exactly do you mean? Well, good clarification here. Let me clarify what I mean. I'm not saying that it's pointless, but my point is that if we test and we learn a lot of interesting things, but then we don't help people understand what we now understand, then we really fail to deliver the value of testing. Imagine if you ordered something on the internet, a book, or not a book, probably not a good example, a vase, glass, something delicate, and it gets all the way to your house. The delivery person drops it, though, when they get to your house, and it breaks on your front porch before you get it. Now, it's not the case that that thing was valueless, but it is of no value to you now because it was not delivered successfully. And that's the same thing